Well, here we are on the eve of a tournament that many of us thought would not happen, but it is, in fact, going to happen, the 2020 U.S. Open, and who knows, it could be the last slam of the year. Hopefully, we will get to see the French Open, but one thing I'm hearing a lot is just give the trophy to Novak Djokovic, and a funnier thing I hear is, look at this draw. It looks like an ATP 250. It looks like a minor league event. This draw is a joke. Well, is it really? Put this on the screen. Let's take a look. Here is Novak Djokovic Australian Open 2020 draw and his U.S. Open last year draw. So back to the AO in January and 1 year ago at the U.S. Open. Are these draws really that different? Yes, Roger and Rafa are gone, and that is a big deal for sure. But let's isolate outside of that. Is it that different outside of Roger and Rafa? Well, one thing I noticed right away is you see AO 2020 and U.S. Open 2019, the final for Djokovic is either Nadal team or Nadal team Medvedev at the Australian Open this year. Well, this year it is team Medvedev, so that's exactly the same minus Nadal. Federer and Berrettini in January were the semifinal projected seeds for Djokovic to meet. Federer at last year's U.S. Open. Djokovic didn't play Federer at last year's U.S. Open. He didn't play Berrettini. He did play an injured Federer at the AO 2020. This year, Tsitsipas, Zverev, Schwartzman. Federer, even if Djokovic had made the semifinal, Federer wouldn't have been there at last year's U.S. Open. So I don't even remember who it would have been, but probably not as tough as Tsitsipas, Schwartzman even, or Zverev. Schwartzman's a tough challenge, and Sasha Zverev, in theory, should be. Maybe he will. I think he's going to lose first round. He drew Kevin Anderson for his first round. So a couple come all the way to New York, Sasha Zverev, for a couple first-round losses. How about that? If we look at the quarterfinal stages, this year, Goffin, Krajinovic, maybe Opelka. David Goffin drew Opelka in the first round. How about that? Before it was Tsitsipas, RBA, and at the last year's U.S. Open, it was Medvedev, Fonini, Fritz. That's pretty weak. So this year, Goffin or Krajinovic, I say that's tougher opponents than Fonini and Fritz. And Medvedev, he's still there, right? He's just moved up since last year's U.S. Open. He's no longer a potential quarterfinal threat. Fourth round, where Djokovic did lose last year, Wawrinka, Hurkacz rhymes with Latch, and big Kevin Anderson. Schwartzman, he's got to play him, but later. I mean, these are all the same people. It's the usual suspects have shown up. Let's look at the early rounds. Carballes Baena, Struff, Zoomer. Yeah, Struff was kind of a tough draw for the first round last year at the Australian Open, but is it really that big of a deal? Sam Querrey, kind of a tough draw. Obviously, he must have been coming off of injury at last year's U.S. Open to be playing Djokovic that early in the second round. This year it's Kyle Edmund, another guy who's gone very high, and he's younger and more close to his prime than Querrey, and he's dropped in the rankings. So is this draw much different? No, to me, it is about the same. And Martina Navratilova made a great point. She said something along the lines of, how many times do you see these big, scary players in a draw and you don't even play them, right? Think about 2017 U.S. Open win for Rafa. Well, I can't remember what it was, but didn't he not run into anybody ranked inside of the top 30 other than Kevin Anderson at the time? You never know. There could be all kinds of people in that draw that you say, oh, that's a tough draw. But there's no guarantee you're going to have to play them, so I don't think there needs to be an asterisk at this U.S. Open. And another great player from the past, Mats Wilander, he said Djokovic hasn't had perfect preparation. Now, by no means am I trying to say Djokovic isn't going to win. He's the favorite. He should win. For Team Djokovic, for Joker faces, Joker fans around the world, if Djokovic doesn't win this, it's a tragedy, right? It's kind of a failure. So if I was a big Djokovic fan, I'd be fully expecting him to win this tournament, and I would be very, very distraught if he didn't, if Djokovic was my favorite instead of Roger Federer. But Mats Wilander, he pointed out, Djokovic has not had a perfect preparation. Some of these young guys, they don't really know what a perfect preparation is. Wilander said, no one's had a perfect preparation for this tournament, really, because of all the stuff going on around the world right now. But Djokovic knows what a perfect prep is before a slam, and he knows he hasn't had it. Whereas some of these young guys, they don't know. Ignorance is bliss, and maybe they'll go out there and just have a great run. Who knows? It's a little early to say anything. We've seen Djokovic struggle with the neck and the stomach problems, but I want you to remember this. If you got excited seeing Djokovic almost lose to Roberto Bautista Agut, If you get excited by any of that, just remember this. Here's Djokovic, hunched over, dying.
Bent over at the back of the court. We've seen him retching at the back of the court.
And then he throws a 7-0 bagel in the tiebreak on Roberto Bautista Agut, who walks to the net to shake hands or touch rackets. And look at this, literally scratching his head after the Joker did what the Joker does. He should win the U.S. Open. He should. He should. Shouldn't he? He should. It's kind of a tragedy for Team Djokovic if he doesn't. But there's no guarantee. That's why we must watch. We will be watching the U.S. Open. Welcome to Coffee Break Tennis. Today on the show, we will go through the draw, take a look at the schedule on who's going to play on Monday on the first day of the U.S. Open. This is the U.S. Open draw show, but a weird thing, we also have the Cincinnati final. We will talk about that a little bit later, about Milos Raonic and Djokovic. I got some comments from Bautista Agut saying it was pretty bush league that they closed the roof right before he served to stay in that second set. We'll take a look at that. Of course, we've got the draw, and then we've got some big stories developing. I'm sure all of you know that tennis took a pause on Thursday to solve racial injustice. No word yet if they've fixed the problem, but fingers crossed that taking that day off from play solved all of the racism around the world. We've got some news that some of the players were not very happy with that decision to pause play on the men's side, especially some of the women were asked what they thought about it and basically said, we don't want to talk about it. So we'll take a look at that a little bit later, and we'll talk briefly about the Thursday racial social justice pause from tennis. Also, some words that this has helped spark interest in starting a players' union on the men's side with, you guessed it, Novak Djokovic and Popsicle. They're looking at starting a union so they can have a little more control over what goes on in tennis. And then finally, just because of the flavor in the air, we will, by the way, we'll talk about Raonic, Djokovic a little bit later too. But finally, I want to read some comments from Rafa Nadal talking about the world today and how he feels with the media trying to take things he says out of context and politicize it, which I think pretty relevant to what we've seen in the last few days. So we will take a look at that later in the show. All right, first up, let's look at the schedule. Let's see what we got Monday. You heard it here, folks. Upset alert. I think Kevin Anderson will take down Sasha Zverev because it hasn't been ideal for him, right? He already went down first round to Andy Murray, or second round, first for him. Had a bye. Then we got Joker and Zoomer. Be interesting to see how Joker is feeling with the neck and the stomach and all that stuff. If it's still a factor at the U.S. Open, Zoomer will make him run all over on Monday. And then another interesting court, last on court 17, interesting match, Riley Opelka and David Goffin. So those are my those are the matches to note on Monday. You know, I mean, there's other players to check out. Obviously, Tsitsipas will be playing Monday. Want to see how he looks after a disappointing loss to Milos Raonic. Disappointing because Tsitsipas played pretty well. I just thought he got a little wimpy on some of his second serves. He got a little scared in that second set after playing a really good first set and losing. Like I said before, Raonic, he looks pretty good, doesn't he? Looks like maybe he could do something special at the U.S. Open. Let's take a look at Bautista Agut, then we'll get right into the draw. Roberto Bautista Agut says, quote, "Everybody knows that they could wait a little bit, no? It was an unfortunate decision," the 32-year-old said. "It's not the first time I disagree with Lars Graf, the ATP supervisor. I think it was not great. I think it was 100% wrong." He said it disturbed his rhythm. Also had problems with his ball toss. If you notice, with the roof closed, it looks a little different up there. To be fair, Bautista Agut has been catching tosses the entire week of this Cincy Masters 1000. He also said, "I totally disagree with the decision he took. It was not great because he broke my rhythm. The roof break could have waited a little bit because the rain didn't come until later." He's kind of right. It could have waited to finish the set because to close the roof, that's a 5-minute break. Credit to Djokovic for toughing that match out. I really thought he was toast. I thought there was a chance he would lose. You know, originally on the show, we said that RBA had no chance because he'd be too worn out. But thanks to Naomi Osaka, they took a day off on Thursday, and that must have helped RBA. Roberto Bautista Agut got a little rest, gave us a heck of a match. Full credit to Djokovic, but I think RBA has a good point. Do comment below what you think about that. closing the roof. Let's get straight into the draw. We already talked a good bit about Djokovic, but he is up against Damir Zumzummer. Struff is always challenging. Real quick, I saw a lot of comments saying, Matt, you're talking about these courts are so fast. Well, the main courts are not going to be as fast. But we did see Louis Armstrong. And also, weather conditions are important. Is it going to be super hot? It looks like it might not be super hot in the 90s some days, but not most days during the U.S. Open. Who knows, a little early to trust the weather forecast. But the court speed is, in fact, slower. We saw it from Louis Armstrong Stadium with Djokovic playing there and Tsitsipas, Raonic, and all that stuff. So we saw some matches there, and we've seen that the court is a little slower. But Brad Gilbert said it's about, in his mind, 11% slower than the other courts. The other courts are so much faster than what we usually see at the U.S. Open. It's still going to be faster. And again, it's early. These courts, they've been practiced on, but they haven't been played several matches for a week straight. I think all the courts are going to be considerably faster than the past. Yes, the main courts, Arthur Ashe, we haven't seen that yet. We'll find out Monday. It's going to be slower, but it'll speed up by the end of the tournament, halfway, 1 week into the tournament. The courts will be significantly faster still than they have been. Remember, the court's reading like 42. If Brad Gilbert's right and it's about a 10, 11% difference, then bring it down to 38. The U.S. Open a few years ago, put it back on the screen. I don't have it with me, but I think it says, I'm going to add this in post-production. I think it says the U.S. Open was like 32.7 or something like that. So it's still what? 20% faster? If it's 10% slower and it's already, and I was wrong when I said it's 24% faster originally, the courts are playing about 30% faster, which is crazy. About 10 points faster than 2017 U.S. Open. So there you go. The courts are faster, period. All of the courts. And those main courts will catch up as they get played on more. Rilo Opelka, David Goffin, I starred here. That could be a quarterfinal match for Djokovic. Rilo Opelka, it's a big maybe. Who knows if he'll even play? We shall find out Monday. They gave him plenty of time. They put him last on court 17 for Monday. If we look down at this rest of the draw, Sasha Zverev, what's he going to do? Probably lose to Kevin Anderson in the first round. If he were not to, the draw isn't too difficult, but he eventually will likely run into Diego Schwartzman or Hurkacz, Manarino are the seeds in that area. Jack Sock is in there. Not expecting too much from him, but who knows? Maybe he's going to shock us all. Duzi Lajovic is around. Borna Coric, Tsitsipas' section above in that bottom half of this, the bottom quarter of this top half of the draw. Take a look at Tsitsipas. Ramos Vinolas is a veteran of the sport. He's played a lot of tennis. That's not an easy first round. I expect Tsitsipas to get through, however. Borna Coric, if you're going to play a seeded player, Borna Coric is a good one to play. He hasn't looked good in forever. And I'm really not seeing a Christian Garin. This is not his surface. I like Tsitsipas to get through here. He should be able to face Djokovic in a semifinal. Prediction, after the dismal performance against Milos Raonic, I do not feel super confident that he can beat Djokovic, but I'll give him a chance. Djokovic wins in 4, goes to the final. Bottom half of the draw. Dominic Thiem. I can't remember who it was from the ESPN broadcast. It might have been Brad Gilbert, I heard, saying that originally he had Dominic Thiem number 2 favorite to win the tournament. After seeing the courts much faster than he expected them to be, all of us were caught by surprise. It doesn't matter if the main courts are a little bit slower. This is a deliberate move. Maybe they thought make the courts faster so the rallies won't be as long and grueling, unless you're Roberto Batista Agut and Novak Djokovic. It still will be long and grueling in that case. But maybe that's what they were thinking, something along those lines. Don't want these players to have to just, really suffer out there. So that could be a possibility why they did it. It doesn't matter. Fact is, they did it. Brad Gilbert says the faster courts and the fact that Dominic Thiem looked so bad in his first round loss to Filip Krajinovic, he puts him down like at 10th favorite now. He's like not a favorite anymore, basically. I don't know if I'll go that far. I do agree with Brad Gilbert. All those are important factors and why we shouldn't expect too much from Dominic Thiem, but it is best of 5. Is he going to lose to Jaume Munara from España? I don't think so. This is a clay court guy. Dominic Thiem is too, but Dominic Thiem, it's good first round. Then he can maybe run into Nagal. Not Nadal, Nagal. Remember Sumit Nagal from India or Bradley Klon. The tough stuff is Marin Cilic. Although Marin Cilic has got Denis Kudla, who does well on grass and faster courts. That could be tough for Marin Cilic. So that's another match I've starred here to, I guess it's going to be on Tuesday. A lot of interesting matches in this bottom half of the draw. Let's just go through them really quick. Tommy Paul and Grigor Dimitrov. That's a toss-up there. Roberto Bautista Agut. I like him here, but he's got to play Tennys Sandgren first. Tennys Sandgren's going to be itching to get back in and get some wins. He was looking good at Cincy before he played Djokovic. I expect RBA to win, but that's a tough one. That's a good first-round match. Looks more like a round of 16 or something, you know. Leonardo Meyer, Oscar Mayer-Wiener versus Milos Raonic. Again, another guy who's been around for a while. I expect Milos to win, but it could have been an easier draw for the first round. Then I've got Kachanov and Jannik Sinner. Must-see TV. Jannik Sinner, I expect a lot from him. He's still very young. And Karen Khachanov, he looked pretty good at Cincy, but I would not be surprised at all to see Jannik Sinner, so upset alert there. Felix Auger and Andy Murray second round is something that we will probably get. Yoshihito Nishioka is a tough customer. Will make Andy Murray play a lot of balls, but Andy Murray looked good to me, even though his movement isn't the same. He knows how to play a fast court. He looks pretty good, so that'll be interesting. Medvedev, who looked pretty good in Cincy, he really doesn't have anyone too dangerous to worry about. Like the seeds are Dimitrov, Basilashvili, Guido Pella. None of these people should be scary for Medvedev. Expect him to make it to the semifinals. Matteo Berrettini, he doesn't look great. Casper Ruud, Benoit Paire, Andrei Rublev maybe could get his game going here. I expect Medvedev to come through to the semifinals there. The bottom half is the most interesting because we got RBA, we got Milos Raonic, we got Felix Auger and Karen Khachanov. They're interesting, but obviously they're not super favorites or anything. And then Marin Cilic is a former champion, and of course Dominic Thiem. Pretty interesting, but I like Milos Raonic still to come through here, or Medvedev. So it's going to be a Medvedev-Raonic semifinal is my prediction. Unless Dominic Thiem really gets things going, that would be a quarterfinal. There's your draw. After going through the whole draw, I feel more like Djokovic is going to win. But I give Raonic, Medvedev, Dominic Thiem. All those guys could potentially beat Djokovic. It's not impossible. So comment below, how do you rank the threats to win the U.S. Open? Obviously, Novak Djokovic is a big number one. I put Milos Raonic at 2 or 3, somewhere with Medvedev. It's a tough call. Tsitsipas is obviously going to have a chance. It's hard to argue that it looks like a minor league draw, but that's just the nature of the sport. You could say, with Roger and Rafa missing, Djokovic is residing within a weak era. All right, we go to ubitennis.net. This is an article by a feller named Tony Fairbairn. This is from, I believe, from today. Yes, from August 29th today. Mixed messages over social justice leaves question marks over tennis's unity. It was an unexpected and perfect scenario for Naomi Osaka. As she said after her eventual semifinal win over Elise Mertens, I don't think it would be that big of a deal. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal, saying that she's going to boycott over, and remember, she did use the word genocide. That was the word she used. I noted, interesting that the media, when they reported on what she said, they read her comments above and below the words, there is a genocide happening in the U.S. That's what she said. So maybe she's not familiar with that word. Maybe she hasn't looked it up on dictionary.com. I didn't think it would be that big of a deal saying that I'm not going to play and boycott the tennis tournament because of a genocide. I didn't think it would be a big deal. Then I got a call from Steve Simon. That's the CEO of the Women's Tennis Tour, the WTA, and he said he was really supportive. My one thing, I didn't want people to blame me for the one-day break if I messed up their schedule, but everyone I talked to was really supportive. It was interesting seeing interviews with Osaka yesterday. She seemed to do kind of a 180. She said, "Oh, I didn't know. I'm so sorry." She's very apologetic, very mousy, kind of reminds you of the trophy ceremony when she beat Serena a couple years ago at the U.S. Open. She was kind of scared, childlike. It was interesting. She said she had no idea it would be a big deal. Maybe she honestly didn't, but the media will always try to make it a big deal. And it happened, let's face it. Whether or not you like your sports being more political, it got way more political, and a lot of people don't like that. It's an international sport, so I'm not surprised to hear that some of the guys in the locker room, all of them are from different countries, right? Who are the Final Four? Was there one U.S. player? I don't think there was. Milos Raonic would be the closest to this country, the United States, from all the players. So no surprise that international players who, like Victoria Azarenka, they talked to her. She didn't want to talk about it. She doesn't think about it. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in her country, in Belarus. Like, are we going to set the precedent that we're going to stop play every time something bad happens in the world? It's an international sport. There's a lot of bad stuff happening. Are we going to boycott every week of tennis? Because if this is the standard, there will be no more tennis, because there's pretty much always something horrible happening in some corner of the world. So I know some Europeans and Eastern Europeans feel like there's already too much of a focus on the U.S., as if stories in the U.S. are the center of the world. So a lot of people, a lot of players, I'm sure, felt like we're going to take a break from the tennis tournament because of some domestic issue in the U.S., and they don't really care. So anyways, let's take a look at this article. However, tennis's united stance did not last long, as during yesterday's press conferences with Naomi Osaka, Elise Mertens, and Victoria Azarenka, the WTA's moderator reiterated that questions should stick with the tennis. A disappointing setback with that same tone seemed to be missing when other issues have been brought up in previous conferences, such as the Belarus protest. In addition, Victoria Azarenka refused to answer the question about tennis's pause to celebrate social justice, with also there being speculation that the male tennis players were not pleased that tennis was paused for a day without their consultation. This latest obstacle shows that tennis is more divided than ever before with Naomi Osaka's hopes of long-term longevity fading quite quickly. Now ahead of Novak Djokovic and Vasek Pospisil, the Popsicles Player Association, that may not include women, there seems to be no united way forwards. Now ahead of the U.S. Open, the players and tennis governing bodies seem more split than before on tennis's direction. Naomi Osaka made her voice known on Thursday, blah, 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 blah. Her colleagues supported her, she said. So I thought I had the quote on here. I don't have the quote. The quotes from Victoria Azarenka, she said, I don't think about this stuff. I don't want to talk about it. Let's talk about tennis. And I can't remember what else they said. But basically, their quotes were along the lines of, this doesn't concern me. It's a domestic U.S. issue. Then there were some tweets and rumblings from Ben Rothenberglers and what's his name? That breathless journalist, Simon Briggs. And they were basically reporting on this players' union possibly being fueled, I think were the words, using this pause, the social justice pause from Thursday. They used it as ammunition in this meeting to form a new player council, a players' union, which would be a massive change for the sport of tennis. So a couple things on the social justice, in which I don't like, and we'll get into in Raonic Djokovic final in just a moment after this. We'll do a couple things, and then we'll read some Rafa words, and we'll get into that. There's no denying when you politicize your sport, you politicize your product. And remember this, tennis is a product. It's no different than buying something from a store in a box. The way we project tennis in the media, the way the media projects it, the way it's presented by ESPN and the broadcasters, that's like the box you put your product in. When you make it very political, no matter what you're saying, no matter what cause you care about, you're going to turn a lot of people off. It's always going to happen, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's Naomi Osaka's right to do whatever she wants. Any of these players can say whatever they want. I have no problem with that. But when the whole sport swoops in and makes it all more political, like we saw when they canceled play, it's a little bit different than one player speaking up about their personal opinions. This is a global sport. If it's the new precedent to cancel play every time something bad happens, be prepared to never play tennis again, because bad things happen almost daily in every corner of this world. Don't forget that. A couple words from Rafa Nadal, because this is I thought it was pretty important stuff he was saying that really captures today's world. Today, absolutely nothing can be said because, unfortunately, they are radicalizing us. I'm not interested in participating. By the way, this is in response to the media got onto him about he was critical of Spain's coronavirus has not been handled very well in Spain, if you don't know. And Rafa said some critical words of local government, how they are dealing with COVID-19. So they asked him about it, and now he's saying how he feels after people took what he said out of context, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Absolutely nothing can be said because, unfortunately, they are radicalizing us. I'm not interested in participating in this circus of hypocrisy and radicalization. Not something you expect to hear from Rafa Nadal. Roger and Rafa, they never get into politics, and for good reason. You don't want to divide your audience. There's a lot of people that love Roger and Rafa. If you start talking about any political issues, you're going to turn a percentage of them off. I'm from another era. I was not born with social networks, nor have I grown up with them. I live a little outside of all that. I said what I felt at the moment. I'm a Spanish citizen like any other. I have the same right to express my opinion as any other citizen. If my statements have an impact or are wanted to be used politically by one side or the other, that no longer depends on me. I'm not going to enter into the radicalization that many intend to implant in this society, in which they try to make controversy with everything. There has come a time when anything that is said is political. The flag is political. If one says what they have done is right or wrong, it's political. One can no longer freely express what one believes because then you are speaking ill of some government. I never spoke ill of a government. I expressed an opinion that I believed at that time, and the truth is that I expressed it with the utmost respect. And then finishing, Rafa says, when I speak, I do it simply as a citizen with humility that my knowledge allows me. Because in the end, the only thing I am is another citizen. I am not a doctor. I am not an athlete. I follow the news, and if they ask me questions, you want me not answer? Well, no, I have to give opinion. I am not a fool. Rafa is no fool, and he nails it. It was painful to watch ESPN break away from the Roberto Batista Agut and Djokovic match to do like a 10-minute interview with Osaka, where I thought, it was a decent interview from Osaka, but Chris McKinstry from ESPN was constantly pressing her, trying to get her to say more political stuff. She said, how do you feel about what's going on? She answers the question. She said, what do you want to see? What kind of actions do you want? She's really trying to get her to get involved. It looked like she wanted Osaka to dive into like a full political discourse during the Djokovic match. Rafa's right. They're always going to take what you say and blow it up in the media and make it as big of a story as they can possibly make it. And I don't think it's a good thing to do to your sport. You might potentially alienate a lot of people, turn off a lot of people, and just crush tennis. If you cut down the fan base of tennis, it's not a good thing for the longevity of the sport in the long term. All right. So like I said in the beginning of the show, who would have known that the U.S. Open would actually happen? And I scheduled a little weekend getaway to the beach. So I'm going to drive to the beach. This is being filmed. I didn't want to tell you until now. This is being filmed before the Djokovic and Raonic final at Cincy. So audio only when I get to the beach in Florida and get to watch the match. This video will be posted after I add some brief audio commentary discussing Djokovic and Milos Raonic. I think Raonic has a chance to win. We shall see. I haven't looked at weather conditions. If the conditions are playing slower, I think Djokovic will probably win. But if the conditions are quick weather and they don't close the roof like they did to poor RBA, I think Raonic will like his chances a lot here. All right, we'll be right back. I'll pop it into the show as soon as I get to Florida. Well, a lot can happen in a drive to Florida from Atlanta, Georgia. My goodness. So I was planning on talking about the Raonic, which, God, how close was Milos Raonic to taking down Novak Djokovic? I was planning on talking about that, but now Djokovic has started a whole nother thing. So apparently, we talked a little bit about it earlier in this video. There was some rumors going around. But now there's more to it, and also I'm seeing, and again, I haven't really had time to read everything. I just got here not that long ago, and I want to get this video up. But already the Australian Open has put out a statement regarding player representation. Anyways, Ubi Tennis has a good piece here. Exclusive full details of Novak Djokovic's letter to players as standoff with Federer and Nadal emerges. So this could get ugly and fast, and this is a big story. I'm kind of shocked that this developed so quickly. Anyways, basically it sounds like let me read a little bit from the Ubi Tennis article here. In his lengthy statement, the 17-time Grand Slam champion sets out 3 primary reasons as to why players should join this proposed players union. And by the way, Djokovic has stepped down from the player council along with Mr. Vajik Popsicle. First, he says, is due to unhappiness expressed over the management of the ATP regarding some of the decisions they have made in recent times, ranging from ranking points to the scheduling of tournaments. Andrea Gaudenzi, the new ATP chairman, he started his role as ATP chairman at the start of the year, although a critical Djokovic writes it's the process of lack of communication with players and big decisions and exclusion of players that is bothering me. And then this next part, I'm reading this and it's making me think about the Russian Revolution a little bit. Secondly, the move has been made in order to help players generate what is being described as executive power.
Djokovic wants executive power, or in other terms, according to Ubi Tennis here, the absolute right to have a direct influence on decision making. The role of the ATP Players Council, it's kind of like the Duma in the period between the Tsar of Russia and the Soviet Union being founded with Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky and all those guys. The role of the ATP Players Council is advisory only to the board. That's why I was talking about the Russian Revolution, because basically they tried to make like a parliament, a Congress, and those guys had no real power, so no surprise that that eventually led to a revolution. You know, they had no real power. They were just advising the Tsar, and that didn't last very long. So the ATP Players Council, they're only advisory. They can, quote from Ubi Tennis, they can influence decisions, but they do not have any final say. Djokovic also says there's conflict of interest within the current structure. So basically, Djokovic wants a more powerful player representation. Like, you know, if you look at like the NFL or the NBA for American sports, they have like a union basically. They have way more representation than tennis. Tennis is structured very differently, and it kind of has to be because of the international nature of tennis with all the tournaments all over the world. Back to Ubi Tennis's article here. Finally, supporters of this players' union stress that this move isn't intended to form a conflict with other governing bodies, and their aim is to enable stronger player representation. Djokovic claims the majority of those in the top 500 in singles and the top 100 in doubles want this to happen, although Ubi Tennis cannot verify this. Yeah, well, I guess you'd have to send a questionnaire. Rafa Nadal, all right, this is from Eurosport. It is time for unity. Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer, and Dan Evans, Dirty Dan, and throw Andy Murray in too, criticize this breakaway players' union. Some of the world's leading players have called into question the timing of this decision. Novak Djokovic is making his move. I mean, he's been involved in this kind of stuff. This isn't new, but I guess if you want to do it, if you're Djokovic, do it now during this U.S. Open, because there's more attention on tennis, you get more attention. So here's a quote from Rafa Nadal. The world is living a difficult and complicated situation. I personally believe these are times to be calm and work all of us together in the same direction. It is time for unity, not for separation. Roger Federer. I agree, Rafa. There are uncertain and challenging times, but I believe it's critical for us to stand united as players, as a sport, to pave the best way forward, Rafa. Speaking to The Guardian ahead of the U.S. Open, British number one Dirty Dan Evans echoed the comments made by his illustrious competitors. I've received the emails of the player union, said British number one. I think now is horrible timing to be talking about that sort of thing. For what it's worth, I think the ATP do a great job for us, and I won't be signing the sheet of paper that they want, meaning Popsicle and the other revolutionaries, Djokovic. I had a conversation yesterday with someone in the changing room, and I played devil's advocate on the ATP side. It was not taken very well. Those people who think the union should happen are set on it. This is key stuff here. Dan Evans is giving us a look inside the locker room. Those people who think the union should happen are set on it. And I must say, they are quite passive-aggressive towards anyone who doesn't want to be involved in it. It sounds like politics, huh? It is all about having a vote, but it seems that if they don't like it, they don't like you very much. I don't understand what the vote is. What are they getting in power for? They've just made a new group, but what do? It's not like they have any standing in the game. If the top 10 players don't sign, are they not going to play because of the new union? It is not really a vote. It is signing a piece of paper that doesn't really stand for much. And that is the end of the Eurosport article. Let's take a look at what the AO released just now as a response to this. The 4 Grand Slam tournaments, the ITF, the WTA, and the ATP have released, so they're teaming up against Djokovic and the coup. They've released the following statement. The unprecedented challenge presented by the COVID-19... Oh, I thought I was going to say unprecedented challenge presented by Djokovic. Presented by a COVID-19 pandemic continues to impact our sport and our way of life in ways that we could not have imagined. Our thoughts continue to be with all of those affected around the world. To address this extraordinary crisis, our sport and many within it, the players, coaches, and administrators, officials, partners, broadcasters have come together. We've worked tirelessly to ensure a safe return to competition, providing flexibility and fairness through adjustments to the rules, financial support for those who need it most. They're listing, the laundry list of good deeds that they've done for the players. Sounds like they're building a case here to say, why tear this up with a players' union? It continues, now more than ever, we need collaboration and strong relationships. We fully support the ATP in its role in representing the best interests of players throughout this process. It is our responsibility to ensure that our sport emerges from this crisis with strong foundations on which we can build. It is time for even greater collaboration, not division. A time to consider and act in the best interest of the sport now and for the future. When we work together, we are a stronger sport. So they don't mention Djokovic. They don't mention a players' union, but they're obviously this is the response to the formation of a players' union. Anyway, so yeah, I logged in to look at some stats from I had to listen on the ATP Tennis Radio, which they did a great job. I can't recall the names of the broadcasters, but I thought they did a good job. Being stuck in the car and not able to watch. I got a good read on what happened with the match, and let me just say a couple things about that. Maybe we'll do a show. I'm driving back home. Probably Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Just depends on how things are developing with the Open, how fast I want to get back to Mr. Goat in the Coffee Break Tennis studios. But I will put up some audio-only shows between now and when I get back to talk about what's going on with this, and also, of course, the U.S. Open. I just want to say a couple things about Milos Raonic because I thought he had the firepower to do it, especially on the faster court, and these courts will be. The show courts are not as fast as the other courts that we saw most of Cincy played on, but the courts are still fast overall. And by the time Raonic, I believe Raonic, bottom half of the draw, Raonic would face Djokovic in the final. It could happen. I'll never forget. Roger Federer wins 2012 Wimbledon, then he goes back to Wimbledon for the Olympics on grass at Wimbledon that year, which was a kind of a weird thing in itself to see you win Wimbledon and then you go back to Wimbledon like a month later. And he beats Andy Murray in the Wimbledon final, but then he loses in the Olympics Wimbledon final to Andy Murray. So, maybe you could say by the time Djokovic and Raonic play on Arthur Ashe in the final after 2 weeks of play, it's a much faster court. Raonic has a better chance there, but then it's best out of 5, which is a better chance for Djokovic, of course. And now that Raonic is 0 wins and 11 losses to Djokovic, I don't think he can mentally get past it. So the odds of someone stopping Djokovic, it's going to have to be Medvedev or Tsitsipas. Those are guys who have beat Djokovic who know they can do it. Maybe I'm not thinking of somebody obvious in the draw. But it doesn't look very good if you're rooting against Djokovic. If you're a big Joker fan, like I said earlier in this show when I was still back in Atlanta, it'd be a tragedy. It'd be a disaster if Djokovic didn't come away and win this somehow. So things are looking very good for Djokovic, but he has invited a lot of controversy with this players' union leaving the player board, the ATP player board, which is obviously just. They make recommendations. They have no real power. Djokovic stepping down, causing a rift. The fact that Roger and Rafa immediately speak out against Djokovic, this is a major distraction. So it's going to be very interesting to see if that can affect Djokovic. But, God, he's so mentally tough. It's hard to see anything stopping him from winning this major. And like I said, the only thing I would say about Milos Raonic is he clearly has the weapons to do it. I don't know if he mentally believes that he can beat Novak Djokovic after being that close. I'm trying to remember what happened in the second set. Obviously, Milos Raonic blew Djokovic away in the first set 6-1. And I can't remember how Djokovic... I remember Milos had some chances early on in the second set to break Djokovic. He had some looks and games. I don't remember how many break points he had, but... he had moments where he could have made things happen. Djokovic looked a little wobbly on some service games. And then, of course, Djokovic breaks. Raonic doesn't look back in the second set. Milos served, I remember the third set very well. Milos was serving 2-0 to go up 3-0. Djokovic wins 2 games in a row to make it 2-all. I can't remember if he broke Milos there and went up 3-2 and then 4-2. It doesn't matter, though, because... to break Djokovic in the final set and serve with Milos Raonic's game and then have like a little mental wobble and not get the 3-0. Be one thing if you went up 3-0 and lost, but the fact that he had the chance to go up 3-0 and he couldn't even do that, it tells me that you're 0-11. You're crazy if you bet money on Milos to take down Djokovic in the final. Maybe the conditions will be more ideal, but I don't care what conditions they are. After today's match, it's really hard for me to see a way where Raonic beats Djokovic. He could win the U.S. Open, but somebody in the top half is going to have to beat Djokovic. And I don't think Sasha Zverev is gonna do it. All right, hit the music. We're getting out of here. I'm tired. It's been a long day, but we will be back Monday. I will do an audio-only podcast show like this. This show is finishing on Monday, and catch you up on. We'll talk about after the matches are done at night. We'll talk about how Djokovic looks, see if the neck is still an issue or stomach problems. But he probably still wins, even if it is an issue. If his neck is bothering him, his stomach is bothering him. Do you think anyone here is really going to beat Djokovic? If you had to put money on it, I guess you got to go with Medvedev. See you.